Hi everyone, and welcome to today's Break for 8 for Dementia Care Partners. My name is Anne, and today I brought along my brain. Isn't it kind of cute? So last time I used the bookcase analogy to describe how dementia changes the brain. And today I thought I would provide a little bit more of a scientific explanation, but it's still going to be pretty simple and easy to understand. And of course, it's going to be brief. So not a super complete lesson in neuroanatomy, but one that I hope helps you understand, what's happening in dementia. So in all forms of dementia, the chemistry of the brain is going to change, which impacts the health and the function of our brain cells. So our brain cells are also known as neurons. So some of these brain chemistry changes could include changes in blood flow, like in vascular dementia, right? Or an increase in inflammation or a decreased ability for our brain to clear out waste material, or even a disruption in neurotransmitter function. And neurotransmitters are essentially the chemical messengers that transport information from one brain cell to another. So over time, these changes are going to destroy the connection between brain cells. So that is essentially kind of the disease process that's happening inside the brain. But let's turn our attention, let's talk a little bit briefly about the parts of the brain. So I think the easiest part to remember is the frontal lobe. And the brain is divided up into different lobes, L-O-B-E-S. Frontal lobe is really important because it's the area that's responsible for what I like to call higher level thinking skills. So things like planning, decision making, problem solving, and just our ability to take information and think rationally about it. So, and we have two sides, the right and the left. And also within the frontal lobe is something called the motor strips. So this is the area that plays a large role in controlling the movements of our body. And then a little bit behind the frontal lobe is the parietal lobe area. And the parietal lobe has a lot to do with attention or understanding spatial relations, also self-awareness. So you may have noticed your person sometimes lacking awareness that that anything is wrong or changed in their thinking and their behavior, and this is an issue with self-awareness. We also call it anosognosia, and it's really going to heavily impact how they interact with their environment and with the other people in a safe way, right? An appropriate way. So sides of the brain, you can find the left and the right temporal lobes, and then these areas play a large role in language and memory. And I know my speech therapist friends, I'm sorry, this explanation is so basic and may make you cringe, but usually left frontal lobe is more heavily involved in generating vocabulary, understanding spoken and written language, and then the right temporal lobe more involved in automatic or speech that has a rhythmical quality, things like music. Or prayers, which you may have noticed your person can remember much longer, or for a long time, right? So in the back of the brain, we have the occipital lobe, and that is the area that's heavily involved in processing visual information. So visual information comes in through our eyes, travels through our brain into the occipital lobe, where it gets kind of sorted out and kind of made sense of. And then last but not least, deep within the temporal lobes of the brain are 5 structures that we sometimes refer to as the limbic system. And this area is thought to be, the most primitive part of the human brain. So it controls things like things our body does automatically, like our heart rate, our breathing, and it's going to also play a role in the generation of emotions. The amygdala is in here. You may have heard of that, or our fight and flight response. All those things, that serve to keep us all alive. So even though all of these areas have their special role to play, they all work together via their connections. So let's take the example. Let's take the example of driving a car. So we receive visual information. Occipital lobe needs to connect with other parts of the brain to help us judge the distance between our car and the car in front of us. Those are spatial relations, right? And then we have to decide how to move our body to turn the steering wheel or put our foot on the gas. We have to remember temporal lobe to yield before making a turn into oncoming traffic, right? And, our frontal lobe, hopefully, will keep our limbic system in check when somebody cuts us off and we have that, emotional response, right? So, when these connections get disrupted by brain changes due to dementia, we're going to see people make mistakes, right? Or they just need more time to process the information and respond to something in their environment. So the other day I told a story about a client named Sue. And Sue was living with frontotemporal dementia, frontotemporal, right, or FTD. And one of her symptoms was increased impulsivity. So I told the story about, driving Sue to her favorite coffee shop. And then as soon as she sees the coffee shop, she opens the door and starts leaving the car, but while we're still moving, right? So, Sue sees the coffee shop and has this emotional reaction, right? But because there's a disruption in her frontal lobe, the area that's responsible for judgment, meaning, understanding cause and effect, what's going to happen if I open the door and get out while the car's still moving, right? So the message or the connection kind of stops in Sue's limbic system, that primitive part of the brain that says, I want this, I'm going for it. So, with frontotemporal dementia, the frontal lobe is affected. So that information rate is never fully getting processed. And, that's why she jumps out of the car. So let's just take another example quickly that's very common. And that is language. Many of you may have observed your person to have difficulty coming up with the right word early on in their dementia journey, like word finding. And, and then as the brain continues to lose connection, they may have difficulty stringing a group of words together that makes sense, or maybe they use the wrong word for something. And then as, dementia advances, expressing a complete thought or fully understanding a question they're being asked becomes quite difficult. So all of this aside, what do we do? What do we do to help the situation? And there are lots of things I've talked about in the past, but in general, the basic tip is to slow down, because slowing down is going to allow your person's brain, some time to catch up to what you're saying or you're asking of it. So slow down. We slow down our speaking. We give one direction at a time, so the brain has time to process something before it has to move on to something else, right? Or we simplify activities by breaking them down into smaller steps. Or we keep things familiar, so the brain just doesn't have to work so hard to try to understand a new situation. Or, in the case of impulsivity, we take precautions to keep our person safe. So Sue, after that one time, started sitting in the back seat where I could kind of lock the child safety locks on the doors, so she couldn't get out before I stopped. And I think probably the most important thing to remember is we can't blame the person living with dementia for all of their mistakes, because as you can see, they're trying to do things they once did before, and now their brain has less connection. So that is our little science lesson for today. But right now, we've talked a lot about connections and losing connections. Let us take this meditation time now, to reconnect with you. So please get comfy. Let's take a breath. I'll do the same. Just begin to settle down, settle into ourselves. Hopefully you are in a quiet space where you can detach from the rest of the people in your house, the rest of the things that are going on around you. So you just begin to settle and turn your awareness to your breath. if anything distracts you, like thoughts or noises, just try to disconnect from them, just for right now. We are always so plugged in, aren't we? Plugged into things we need to be doing, things other people are telling us. It's a busy, busy environment. So use this time to disconnect from all of that and to reconnect with you, with the part of you that is strong, stable, peaceful, and worthy of love. On your next inhale, I'd like you to take a deep, deep breath in, filling up the bottom of your lungs first. Hold it at the top for a moment before you let it out as slow as you can, emptying your lungs completely. Let's take a few moments to take a few more breaths just like this at your own speed. And as you breathe in, I'd like you to imagine pulling everything that you have left behind on your way today. Pull all of that energy and attention back to you. Just imagine everything that's been scattered coming back to its home, back to you. All your attention, all your focus, all your love, all your kindness, even your frustration or impatience. Just pull all that energy back to you, breathing it all back in. And now as you exhale, I'd like you to imagine yourself releasing or letting go of anything that no longer serves you. Maybe it's resentment. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe it's negativity. Maybe it's being taken advantage of. Maybe it's saying yes when you want to say no. So let's just keep breathing in, reconnecting with ourselves, and breathing out, letting go, releasing everything that no longer serves you. And as you breathe in one last time, just know you're not alone. There are others here doing this exercise with you, or maybe at a different time, but thinking of you. So let's kind of reconnect to one another virtually, right? We see you. So when you're ready, you can begin to just wake yourself up, wiggle your fingers and toes. You might want to open your eyes. Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you have a good day. Keep this strength and stability with you for as long as you can. And if you feel it leaving, just take a moment. Take a moment for yourself to breathe in and breathe out again. Regain your composure, regain your stability. You've got this. We'll see you next time.